having transferred the distances of the increments to a sheet of paper, I can then move that paper anywhere, and then say if I want to set a distance of 1 inch, I can just mark on the drawing a 1 inch distance, and I'll get it as close as I can. I think that looks close enough. And what I can do here is then I can just draw a line between those 2 points, and then I'm going to say, well, that line happens to be 1 inch in length. I passed a little bit there, so to be sure I'll put some cross marks to make sure that I'm exactly at the 1 inch mark. Okay, now say for example I want to take this distance and divide it into a certain number of equal distances. It could be any number, as you already know, but let's say for this particular example, let's try dividing this line into four equal increments, and I can use the system I used before. I can just mark off every 1/4 of an inch on that construction line that I just drew, and then all I need to do is transfer using the parallel line method. I'll transfer from the last point on the construction to the last point on the given line. I will go ahead and draw a line, and then subsequent lines parallel to that line at the points that I had set up. So what that actually does for me is now I can measure not only every inch, but I can measure where every 1/4 of an inch occurs. Okay, so I've got these points set, so then I'll just transfer them onto my sheet of paper, and then I'll say, well, from here to here is an inch, from here to here is 1/2 an inch, and this would be the 1/4 inch marks. Okay, so I've got a temporary scale here of a 1/4 divided into quarters, and then the rest are these are inches. So now if I want to know the length, the actual length of this edge, I can set my scale on one of the corners lined up with one of the lines, and I want to use the 1/4 or the divided inch scale over here, so that I'll set it to where that the last point comes inside of the or outside of the divided line. So now I can say that this length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/4. Okay, so just for my purposes, I'll say this is 5 1/4, so that I don't forget that it's my length. Now I know that my depth here is 3 inches, and then I've got this little stair step that's less than an inch, and it's somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2, and the only thing I can think of that would fit there would be about 3/8 of an inch. This is not completely accurate because it's just a sort of a sketch, an exercise. So I'll just say that that distance is 3/8 of an inch. Same thing applies with these holes. They look like they're less than an inch, but I don't know how much less than an inch. Well, if I take my graduated scale here, it looks like they're about 3/4 of an inch, and I have to measure at this isometric angle in order to get them correctly. So I'm going to say that these holes are 3/4 of an inch, then I've got some other dimensions, and you get the idea of how to measure. The height here looks like it's 3 inches, so I'll just type in or write in 3 inches. And these little ledges look like they're about 1/2 inch. Okay, 2/4 would be 1/2, so this would be 1/2, and this would be a half. And if this was 3 inches across, I can take a half and a half from 3, and what's left over would be 2 inches.